Welcome back to National Affairs. Well, real privilege to have big writer, big economist, big thinker, Dambisa Moyo on the show right now with her latest book, Winner Take All, China's Race for Resources and What It Means for the Rest of the World. Dambisa, I really enjoyed Dead Aid. In fact, that's when you and I first met. That book came out, caused a lot of stir within the NGO community. You're causing a lot of stir with this book, too, saying, in effect, that China's insatiable demand for commodities is going to change the world as we know it. How, why, and when?
Oh, goodness me. Well, lots of questions there. Well, they have embarked on an amazing, systematic, and deliberate approach of securing resources. And by that, I mean land, water, energy, and minerals. And it's like nothing we've seen before. Traditionally, you see incursions that tend to be military in their nature, and sort of the approach has tended to be very aggressive in terms of extracting minerals from one place and taking them back elsewhere, and very much an artifact of the colonial approach. The Chinese have adopted an incredibly symbiotic approach. They're going to numerous host countries around the world. They're giving these countries what they want: loans, investment, trade, and in return gaining access for resources in a very friendly and benign sort of win-win situation type of approach.
So what are your feelings about those who allege that, you know, with Chinese investment often comes corruption, comes poor labor practices, poor environmental practices? Is that the West kind of carping at Chinese success, or is that something we've got to factor into this Chinese model?
Well, I think it is largely carping. I mean, I've done an extensive research, spend a lot of time going to different parts of the world to try and really figure out if it actually is true that there is use of Chinese prisoners. Is there a systematic and deliberate and widespread sort of abuse of environmental and labor laws? And to be honest with you, there was absolutely no sort of systematic and sort of widespread approach, as it's often referred to in the press. Now, that's not to say that the Chinese should get a red carpet and should be welcomed. I mean, I think like any other foreign investor, they have to face regulatory standards, environmental standards, and it's very important that they do that. But I think that it really is exaggerated and unfairly so.
Yeah, we have to think of the horrible record of colonialism, slavery, the systematic environmental degradation of whole swaths of your continent, Africa, and make that a point of comparison. What's your feeling, though, about the future of resources on this planet? When you read this book, I got a little bit of a flavor of almost like the Club of Rome. You've got a real worry here about resource scarcity and how China's insatiable demand could really change our lives in a pretty fundamental way here in North America. Go a bit deeper with us on that.
Sure, absolutely. So my book is really is the next book in the long line of this view that population demand pressures will not be met by the finite resource supply. So whether it's Malthus or the Club of Rome that you've just talked about, or limits of growth literature that came out of MIT, there is this theme that we do not have enough resources, land, water, energy, and minerals to meet the growing demand. I definitely take that tack here because I do believe that not only do we have an enormous growing population, which is a very unique factor of the time that we happen to live in, but indeed we have urbanization and significant wealth appreciation across the world now, where 90% of the population is in the emerging markets, and that's precisely where we expect there'll be 3 billion new people in the middle class. So that, coupled with the fact that we are talking about scarce, finite, and depleting resources, does worry me. And I think more than that, the expectation that we'll get a bailout from innovation and R&D has definitely not come to bear. And having done a lot of research around where we are in terms of desalination, in terms of replacement of fossil fuels as a source of energy, it does not leave me very sanguine, I'm afraid.
So it's higher gas prices, it's higher food prices, it's higher land prices. Those will rise in the developed and the developing world alike.
Absolutely, and in fact they already have. Between 2009 and now, so in certainly the aftermath of the financial crisis, commodity prices have risen 150%. But more than just commodity price rises, I think we also face significant conflicts. Already there are 25 wars around the world that have their origins in commodity scarcity. And the United States Department of Intelligence just a couple of months ago put out a report cautioning that there will be many more wars that are based in water. And so I think that we are in this very precarious situation where the population population has expanded so significantly, more than ever in time in prehistory or in history. And in fact, demographers would say it will never increase at the pace it is right now, after it tapers off at 2100. But that unique aspect that we're facing right now, plus these concerns about the scarcity and depleting nature of these resources, leads me very, very uncomfortable.
Talking about conflict, what do you see as the risk of conflict between China and the rest of the world? Because while China doesn't have the traditional language or style of an empire, what often draws empires into conflict is when their supply lines draw up, when the resources that they've claimed for themselves are attacked or threatened by other people. Do you see that as a growing risk unfolding through the 21st century?
I really don't. I think it's pretty clear that the Chinese imperative the political imperative is definitely to deliver economic growth and meaningfully put a dent in poverty for the billion people in China who are still living below, poor income levels and low economic standards. But I think more than that, if you look at the amount of money that China is spending on R&D, on nuclear energy, on desalination, on solar panels, it's far outstrips the amount of money that they're spending on military investment. And I think that is really a reflection of the view that there are serious bottlenecks that could be had if they continue to invest, if they did not invest significantly in trying to support economic growth.
Okay, Dambisa, a big new important book following on, this is the third now.
It
had Dead Age,
How the West
Was Lost, and now Winner Take All. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's time for a break for me.